I stood in their perfectly manicured front garden, my small suitcase at my feet, watching Rachel peer down at me through her designer glasses. Behind her, the Victorian mansion I'd secretly owned for 30 years loomed like a silent witness. "I don't understand what you're doing here," Rachel said, blocking the doorway. "Did Marcus know you were coming?" "I left messages," I replied quietly. "After the sale of my house." "Oh yes, that tiny place you finally unloaded." She wrinkled her nose. "I told Marcus you should have sold years ago, but why are you here?" I heard my son's voice from inside. "Who is it, darling?" "Your mother," Rachel called back, her tone dripping with disdain. "Apparently, she sold her house and seems to think." Marcus appeared behind her, looking uncomfortable in his expensive suit. "Mom, what's going on?" I thought, since I sold my house. I gestured to my suitcase. "Maybe I could stay here for a while. Just until I figure out my next steps." Rachel's laugh was sharp enough to cut glass. "You can't be serious. This isn't some retirement facility. We have a reputation to maintain." I glanced up at the intricate woodwork I had restored 20 years ago, remembering how I'd specified every detail while maintaining my anonymity through a property management company. "It would only be temporary," I said softly. "The house is certainly big enough." "Size isn't the issue," Rachel snapped. "We host important people here. What would they think, seeing some old woman shuffling around?" Marcus shifted uncomfortably. "Mom, maybe we could help you find a nice retirement community. Something more appropriate for your situation." By situation, they meant my apparent poverty, a carefully maintained illusion that had allowed me to observe their true characters over the years. "I see," I said, reaching into my bag. "Perhaps this might interest you then." I pulled out an envelope bearing the letterhead of the city's most prestigious law firm. "What's that?" Rachel asked, suspicion creeping into her voice. "Just some property documents. You see, I've been thinking about the house." "Our house," Rachel interrupted. "We've lived here for 5 years." "As tenants," I corrected gently. "Very well-paying tenants, but tenants nonetheless." The color drained from Marcus's face. "What are you talking about?" "Maybe we should discuss this inside," I suggested, "unless you prefer the neighbors hear about your rental status." That got their attention. Rachel practically yanked me through the doorway, her designer heels clicking anxiously on the marble floor I'd imported from Italy. "Explain," she demanded once we were in the living room. "And make it quick. We have the neighborhood association meeting in an hour." I sat in my favorite armchair, though they'd never known it was mine, and opened the envelope. "Did you ever wonder why you couldn't buy this house? Why it was only available for lease, despite your generous offers?" "The property management company said the owner wasn't interested in selling." Marcus replied slowly. "Yes, I did say that." "You?" Rachel's laugh was more nervous now. "That's ridiculous. This house is worth millions." 8.5, according to the latest appraisal, I confirmed. "Though I paid considerably less when I bought it 30 years ago. Amazing what good investments can do." But your little house," Marcus stammered, "was a convenient place to watch how you treated people you thought were beneath you." I pulled out more papers, like when you told the gardener's daughter she shouldn't dream of college. The one I secretly sponsored through medical school. Rachel sank onto the imported silk sofa. "This is impossible." "Or when you complained about the ISO retirement home down the street?" I continued. "The one I founded and funded?" "Mom," Marcus's voice cracked. "Why didn't you tell us? Would it have changed how you treated people? Made you kinder to those you thought had less?" I spread the documents on the coffee table. "Or would you have just bragged about having a wealthy mother instead of being embarrassed by a poor one?" Rachel grabbed the papers with trembling hands. These are lease termination notices. Yes, effective in 30 days. I watched their faces pale. "Unless, of course, we can come to a new arrangement." "What kind of arrangement?" Marcus asked warily. "One where I move into my house. The east wing, perhaps? It has that lovely view of the garden I designed." "You can't just. We have a life here," Rachel protested. "Our social standing, our connections. All built on borrowed prestige," I pointed out. "In a house you rented from the poor old woman you couldn't be bothered to help." A small voice came from the doorway. "Grandma? Is it true? You own our house?" We turned to see my 12-year-old granddaughter Emma standing there, her tablet in hand. "Emma," Rachel snapped. "Go to your room, this is adult." "Yes, sweetheart, it's true," I interrupted. "Just like it's true that I'm the anonymous donor who funded your robotics club when your parents said it wasn't proper for a young lady." Emma's eyes widened. "That was you, but Mom said." "Mom said a lot of things," I said gently, "about worth and status and keeping up appearances. But tell me, what do you think is more important, seeming rich or being kind?" "Being kind," Emma answered without hesitation. "Like how you always help me with my projects even though Mom says you're—" "Oh," she looked at her mother. "Mom was wrong about you, wasn't she?" Rachel flushed deep red. Marcus stared at the floor. "The lease termination can be withdrawn," I said calmly, "but things will change, starting with how we treat people, all people. And if we refuse?" Rachel's chin lifted defiantly. "Then you have 30 days to find another mansion to rent. Though your current income might not support quite this level of appearance." Emma rushed over to hug me. "Please stay, Grandma. You can have my suite. It's bigger than the East Wing." "Emma," Rachel protested automatically, then seemed to remember the situation. I hugged my granddaughter back. "The East Wing will be fine, sweetheart. Though perhaps you'd like to help me decorate. Can we make a robotics lab?" Her eyes shone with excitement. "Of course. After all," I smiled at my shell-shocked son and daughter-in-law. "This is a family home, and families should support each other's dreams, shouldn't they?" Sometimes I thought as Rachel and Marcus struggled to process their new reality. The best lessons about wealth come from those you thought had nothing to give. The next week passed in a blur of uncomfortable adjustments and shattered pretenses. Rachel tried maintaining her social facade, but the news that they were renters, not owners, had already begun circulating through her precious neighborhood association. "It's humiliating," she hissed one morning, watching me tend to my garden. "Everyone's whispering about us, about how you treated your mother-in-law," I asked mildly, pruning my prized roses, "or about how you've been living beyond your means." "We pay the rent," she protested. "With money from your father's trust fund," I pointed out. "The one that expires next month. Did you think I didn't know?" Her face paled. "How did you?" "I've owned this house for 30 years, dear. I make it my business to know who's living in it." Inside, I could hear Emma excitedly showing Marcus our newly converted robotics lab in the East Wing. My son had been unusually quiet since the revelation, spending hours in his home office, presumably reassessing his life choices. "Your father called," I mentioned casually to Rachel. "He's quite interested in meeting the woman who's been his daughter's actual landlord all these years." Rachel's hand flew to her throat. "You spoke to Daddy?" We had quite an illuminating conversation about trust funds, responsibility, and raising children to value the right things. Before she could respond, Emma burst into the garden, her eyes shining. "Grandma, the 3D printer you ordered arrived. Can we set it up now?" "Of course, sweetheart." I smiled, watching Rachel flinch at our easy rapport. "Would you like to join us?" I asked her. I don't know anything about that stuff," she admitted reluctantly. "Neither did I, until I learned," I said. "It's never too late to discover new interests, especially ones that don't involve social climbing." Later that evening, Marcus finally emerged from his office, looking haggard. "Mom, can we talk?" I set aside my tablet, where I'd been reviewing property investments. "Of course. I've been looking at our finances," he said quietly, "without Rachel's trust fund." "You can't afford the rent," I finished. "I know." "Why didn't you tell us? All these years. Would you have learned anything if I had?" I met his eyes. "Or would you have just switched from being embarrassed by my poverty to bragging about my wealth?" He had the grace to look ashamed. "I'm sorry. For everything." "I'm not the one who needs to hear that," I said, nodding toward Emma's room, where she was working on her latest robotics project. "She's been watching how you treat people. What lessons do you think she's learning?" A crash from the kitchen interrupted us. We found Rachel attempting to operate the coffee maker, something she'd always left to the housekeeper. "I let Maria go," she announced, her voice small. We can't afford staff anymore." "Interesting," I had observed, how quickly priorities change when resources do. "I don't know how to do any of this," she admitted, gesturing helplessly at the kitchen. "Would you like to learn?" I offered. "Along with other things." She looked at me suspiciously. What do you mean? The retirement home you called an eyesore. They need volunteers. People to teach basic computer skills, help with social media. Me? Volunteer? Unless you prefer to find a more modest house to rent. The threat hung in the air. Rachel glanced around the kitchen she boasted about but never really used. I could try, she whispered. Excellent. I smiled. You can start tomorrow. Emma and I are teaching a robotics class there. You might be surprised by what elderly people can do when given a chance. Marcus cleared his throat. About the rent. We'll discuss a new arrangement, I said. One based on what you can actually afford, not what you pretend to afford. But it comes with conditions. What conditions? Rachel asked warily. First, Emma's robotics activities are encouraged, not hidden. Second, you both volunteer at the retirement home. And third, I paused, you start treating people based on who they are, not what they own. Is that all? Rachel's attempt at sarcasm fell flat. No, I pulled out my tablet. You'll also take basic life skills classes, cooking, cleaning, household management. It's time you learned how the other half lives. The other half? Marcus questioned. The half you've been looking down on while living in a landlord's house. Emma bounded into the kitchen, arms full of circuit boards. Mom. Dad. Want to see what Grandma taught me to make? Rachel and Marcus exchanged glances, then nodded slowly. Show us, Rachel said, attempting a smile. Maybe you could teach us too. As Emma excitedly explained her project, I watched my son and daughter-in-law's faces. The facade was cracking, revealing something that might, with time and work, become genuine. Remember, I said quietly, true wealth isn't in what you appear to own. It's in what you actually build, including relationships. Sometimes I thought as Rachel tentatively asked Emma questions about robotics, the best renovations aren't done to houses, but to the people living in them. And sometimes it takes losing the appearance of wealth to find something actually valuable. The transformation of both the house and my family over the next 6 months surprised everyone, especially those who had witnessed their previous reign of social superiority. Initially, Rachel retreated from her social circles, emerging only to spread stories about choosing a simpler life. But when her former society friends started praising the retirement home's new technology program, she found herself facing an unfamiliar sensation, genuine accomplishment. The turning point came from, of all things, a broken washing machine. I need help, she called one evening, her voice missing its usual pride. The laundry room is flooded, and I can't reach any repair service. Emma says you know how to fix things. I could have let her struggle. Part of me wanted to. Instead, I said, get your tools ready. It's time you learned basic home maintenance. The Rachel who met me in the laundry room was barely recognizable. Her designer clothes had been replaced by practical wear, her perfect manicure was chipped, and her eyes held something I'd never seen before, eagerness to learn. Emma, who had inherited my practical nature, watched as I taught her mother basic repair skills. You have to understand how things work, I explained, showing Rachel the machine's components. Just like you need to understand people before judging them. The irony of my words wasn't lost on anyone. What followed was what Emma called the great reality check. The woman who once wouldn't touch a cleaning tool now spent weekends learning household skills and teaching computer basics to seniors. Mom actually fixed Mrs. Johnson's laptop today, Emma told me proudly. She didn't even complain about the coffee stain on her shirt. Marcus, showing more growth than I had expected, started taking financial management classes. He would work late into the night, learning to live within their actual means. One day, I overheard him tell Rachel, "Why did we waste so much time pretending to be something we weren't?" Rachel set down her household accounts book, hands trembling. "Because we thought appearances were everything," she admitted softly. "We were so busy looking rich that we never learned to be wealthy in the ways that matter." "Like how we treated Grandma?" "Yes," she whispered. "Your mother built all this while we looked down on her. We were too blind to see true success doesn't need to show off." The real breakthrough came during our first community tech fair at the retirement home. A resident presented a digital memory book he had created with Rachel's help. The old Rachel would have dismissed it. The new Rachel spent hours helping other seniors create their own projects. "This is real satisfaction," she said afterward. "Not pretending to be important, but actually making a difference." Later that evening, as we cleaned up the fair's equipment, Rachel lingered. "I've been thinking," she said quietly, "about the East Wing." "Oh, yes, we should convert part of it into a permanent tech center for the seniors. If that's okay with you." I studied her face, looking for any trace of her old social climbing self. I found none. "That's a generous idea," I said carefully. "But it would mean giving up more of your exclusive home." "Home isn't about exclusivity," she replied, watching Emma teach an elderly gentleman to use video chat. "It's about creating space for what matters. I just wish I'd learned that sooner." Marcus, who had been pretending not to listen, joined us. For the first time ever, he looked at me with genuine respect. "Will you help us?" Rachel asked. "To make this house what it should be? Better," I smiled. "We'll all do it together, and learn plenty along the way." I looked at them both uncertainly. If you're ready for that?" They nodded, watching years of superficial values dissolve like morning mist. As we locked up that night, Emma pointed to the mansion's elaborate facade. "Look, sometimes the most beautiful houses are the ones that welcome everyone." Yes, I agreed, watching Rachel help a senior resident to their car. And sometimes the best families are the ones who learn to value what's real. The house lights dimmed behind us, but the warmth of transformation lit our way forward. In the end, it wasn't about property ownership or revenge or even social status. It was about learning that true worth isn't measured by the size of your house, but by how many people you welcome into it. As Emma often says now, the best homes aren't built with money. They're built with love, learning, and maybe a few repair tools. And sometimes the greatest legacy isn't the property you own, but the values you instill in those who live there.